All right, for this one, the first thing that we should do for 23 is to change this to multiplication. And by doing that, I'm going to flip the second one upside down. So I'm going to get 9p minus 36 in the bottom, then 5p cubed minus 35p squared in the numerator, and then that's 1 over 5p squared. So first off, when we have to divide, does that work? Are we okay with that? So it's always having to change this rational expression and that one only. All right, so now we have to factor. First guy we don't factor at all. The second one, 5 and 35, is there a common factor? 5. Now I have p cubed and p squared. When we factor out a common factor with variables, you always take, is it the biggest one or the smallest one? The smallest one. So it would be a p squared. And so I took out, I need a p there, so it's p minus 7. And then on the bottom here, the common factor is going to be 9. So it's p minus 4. Now, what can I divide out? The 5p squared there and the 5p squared there. Can I divide out anything else? No. Nope. So my answer is going to be p minus 7 over 9 times p minus 4. Now, as far as numbers that are excluded in here, from here I know if that fraction is undefined, p has to be equal to 0. So I know 5p squared has to equal 0, so p equals 0. So that's one of them. But now, if I looked at this fraction by itself, when we're dividing by it, that's p equals 0. What would make this equal to 0? 7. And the problem as it would be 1 over 5p squared divided by something over 0, and it would ruin the whole thing. We couldn't do it. So I have to use the original and say, all right, well, in the original, it's 0 and 7. So that p minus 7 equals 0 gives me p equals 7. But when I changed it here and I multiplied it, if p was 4, wouldn't that screw it up too? Yeah. So I need another p, that p minus 4 equals 0, so p equals 4. So I would 0, 4, and 7. Because those three numbers are going to screw it up at one point or another. Yep. And the p squared, because there's p squared right in the beginning there. So since we had to flip it, we had to check not only this fraction, or this denominator, and then for good measure, we looked at this denominator too, because if we multiply by this guy, we can't have that undefined either. Well, if you just say a fraction divided by a fraction, if p minus 7, if you plugged it in here, you'd get 0. So it'd be a fraction with the denominator equals 0.
So whatever fraction is in the top, you take it and equals 0?
Yep. Does that make sense?